You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Hello, me old muckers. And how are we this fine November Wednesday? Yes, it's time again for another riveting episode of what I think is quite possibly the best online show covering both the past and the paranormal, although I could be biased. It's Haunted Histories with me, your host Penny G. Morgan, right here, right now, only on Parasearch Radio. Now, before we start, I want to apologise if you hear me sniff, if you hear me sneeze, or if you hear any croaks. It's bug season and it's hit the Morgan household with a vengeance. So please do excuse me, and hopefully I will be sniffle-free for you by next week. We'll talk about weeks. Last week we were lucky enough to chat with the absolutely wonderful Bill Tabone of Australian Paranormal Society about Arradale Lunatic Asylum. And yes, those wonderful dulcet tones were coming to you all the way from Melbourne, Australia. The show was a really enjoyable one to make, if I'm honest, and Bill has so much experiences to share. He will be joining us again in 2018. I did hear from another Australian friend of Parasearch Radio, though, Sarah, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your surname wrong, Sarah, Chumacero, who writes the brilliant Living Life in Full Spectrum blog. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, go with post haste, as it's well written, succinct, and talks about lots of different paranormal type, stuff. Anyway, Sarah actually went to the asylum with Bill's group last week and wrote a really interesting piece on the human pendulum, as they were joined by one of my fellow countrymen, a Brit abroad, Chris Morris of Paranormal Friends. Chris is a big believer in using Victorian methods when doing investigations, hence the human pendulum. I won't give away all of the blog secrets because if you're interested, you can go and read it for yourself. We've shared it on our Parasearch page, but one of the things I wanted to mention, because it did make me chuckle, was that Sarah mentioned that her brother, Glenn, was being pushed and then felt as though he was being pinned into the corner of a room. She goes on to say that Glenn is no slouch and is quite a large guy who is also a bodybuilder. But as I said, if you want to read more, go and follow Sarah's blog and see what she has to say. And say hi from Parasearch Radio. If you haven't listened to the Arradale show, or any others that you may have missed, don't worry. They're all stored safe and sound for you on both Spreaker and YouTube, so you can listen and download or shout them from the rooftops if you so wish. That applies to all the Parasearch shows, not just this one. All about equal opportunities, me. So, as I apparently sound like a teacher, so I've been told, albeit a croaky, sort of bug-induced teacher today. There you go, that's my first sniff. Here's your homework. You've got to make sure you follow both Sarah and Bill's Facebook pages. So that's Living Life in Full Spectrum and Australian Paranormal Society. And listen to all the Haunted History shows. I will personally give a gold star to everyone who does that. How does that sound? Benevolent teacher? There you go. Anyway, enough of all that frivolity. Where are we today? Well, we're back in Blighty. I'm using that term as then you may twig what period of history I plan to focus on. No? Not yet? Oh, that'll be a lesson for you, won't it? Well, we're visiting Fort Horsted in Kent, near Chatham to be precise, and we'll be speaking to the lovely Kerry and Stephen of Fright Nights London all about this amazing place. What I thought I would do for your lesson portion, if you like, is give you an outline of the fort's history and then hone in on a particular time it was in use. Well, during the mid-1800s there was quite, I suppose you could say, plausible alarm ringing through the UK, Great Britain, with the ambitions of Napoleon III and his territorial march, but also the burgeoning power of Imperial Germany. The French having been a perceived enemy of the UK for many, many, many years. The threat was seen as being so great that a royal commission to look at the defence of the island, mainly from a sea perspective obviously, because there wasn't aeroplanes back then, was set up in 1859 and reported its findings to the government in 1860. One of the recommendations was the construction of some kind of fortification to protect the Chatham dockyard, where the new warships were being constructed. Well, 5 forts were put up, if you like: Darland, Luton, Horsted, Bridgewood, and the Twydale redoubts. Interestingly, there was some doubt as to whether fixed fortifications provided any use from a military perspective, and these forts became known as Palmerston's Follies, after Lord Palmerston, the Prime Minister of the time. There you go, pop quiz question for you if you ever asked that. Construction of Horsted began in 1880 using prison labour from the nearby Borstal jail, and by 1889 the work was complete. In fact, if you Google it, you can actually find photos of officers supervising the Borstal workers whilst they were building the fort. They're quite interesting. And shortly after 1889 it began its role as a garrison, a munitions store, and a water backup to both Fort Luton and Fort Bridgewood. As you probably know, just from general knowledge, the Medway area was never invaded by the French, and the forts were only attacked under dummy runs by British forces, especially like practice fights. For the next 60 years or so, Horsted was in continual occupation by a small force of Royal Ordnance Corps soldiers, and then latterly the Royal Artillery. A lot of what the fort was used for in both World War I and World War II is still covered, amazingly, under the Official Secrets Act. So we can but speculate. But it's believed that during World War I it was used to manufacture and store ammunition. Fort Luton, for example, one of the other Palmerston Follies, was used as a transit barracks for the poor souls who were going over to Europe to fight. It's well known, and there's lots of accounts, that with the sheer volume of men who were getting ready to go across the Channel, that accommodation was required pretty much everywhere on the south coast, with makeshift Nissen huts being erected wherever there was space. So it's no surprise that these barely used forts were brought back into use as accommodation and storage. So, World War I. Yes, that's what the term blighty applies to. If a soldier was injured in the war and was being shipped home, he was said to have copped a blighty, or got a blighty pass. It's probably now known as an affectionate term for Britain, but supposedly it's also a variation of the Urdu word vilayati, which sounds like bilayati under some regional dialects, and means literally foreign or British. So World War I. Well, I can't really find too much on what Horsted did in World War I due to the secrecy side of things. But what I did find was an account on one of those ancestry pages linked to actually the Imperial War Museum of a soldier who was there for a while. And I think that by looking up the evidence, the birth certificates, the marriage certificates, and reading up on what they did, makes history a lot more real and emotional. Makes it come to life. Because he could be the young lad living down the road from you. What do you think? You want to give it a whirl? Okay. Well, Frederick Hart was born in Fulham on March the 3rd, 1894, to Alice and Thomas Hart. he was one of 7 children, and on the 27th of May 1915, 21-year-old Frederick, all 5'5" of him, with fair hair, fair skin, and blue eyes, joined the British Army and went into the 12th Middlesex Regiment. In April 1916, Frederick married his sweetheart, Amy White, and 2 months later their son was born. It doesn't take a genius to work out that Fred must have been home around, October 1915 as well. But on the 27th of July 1916, Frederick was injured by shell fire and diagnosed with shell shock, and was granted a Blighty back to England, and went to Exeter Hospital on the 3rd of August 1916. He stayed in hospital until the 15th of September 1916. After being discharged to furlough, which is a type of break or acceptable leave of absence, from Exeter Hospital, Frederick was posted to Fort Horsted camp in Chatham on the 25th of September 1916. However, Frederick reported late at 1800 hours, was admonished and docked 2 days loss of pay. In October 1916, he overstayed his leave and had 10 days being confined to barracks and another 2 days loss of pay. In November 1916, he again overstayed his leave and was given 10 days detention and 2 days loss of pay. From detention, he was posted to the BEF in December 1916, and then in 1917 he was posted to the Machine Gun Corps, also known as the Suicide Squad, with the 18th Division. The BEF was the British Expeditionary Force, but this 22-year-old father of one, Lance Corporal, service number 73937, was going to leave Fort Horsted for something far worse than 10 days detention for unauthorised extension of his leave. He was going to the front as part of the Machine Gun Corps, a hastily created unit to try and utilise the effectiveness of machine guns and create an entire unit as opposed to existing units that had just 1 or 2 guns each. He was trained on the Vickers machine gun, a water-cooled 7.7mm machine gun produced by Vickers for the British Army. This machine gun typically required a 6 to 8 man team to operate. 1 fired, 1 fed the ammunition, and the rest helped to carry the weapon, its ammunition and spare parts. The large, if you look at a picture of one of them, the large cylindrical jacket around the main barrel held about 1 gallon of water. And to keep water loss to a minimum, a rubber hose was attached to a container that condensed steam. The machine gun actually used the same ammunition as the Lee Enfield rifle and could fire at a rate of 450 bullets a minute. There was a lot of bullet wastage, as the speed meant that not all hit their target, but the same could be said for any machine gun, and wasn't actually specific to the Vickers. It is possibly an embarrassment to the Ministry of Defence that they had that, so much so that they disbanded the unit completely in 1922, with the Heavy Machine Gun Corps becoming the Tank Regiment. It was known as the Suicide Squad due to the heavy losses it sustained. Out of probably just over 170,000 men who were part of it, at least 62,000 were injured or missing, and of that there was over 12,000 confirmed deaths. Lance Corporal Hart died on the 23rd of October 1918. I couldn't find from the military records which battle he was actually part of when it happened officially, but it does say he was on the French-Belgian borders. So, looking back through the battles that were taking place in that time period, I may have to assume, and this is an assumption, it's not necessarily fact, but it was during an offensive at the Battle of the Selle, which took place after the Battle of Cambrai. That was the 17th of October 1918 to the 25th of October 1918. So Lance Corporal Hart died 18 days before the end of the war. Just 18 days. The reason I mention this is that there is nowhere in the records that mentions about Horsted being a feeder camp for the Machine Gun Corps, or even a feeder unit for the British Expeditionary Forces. So it does make you wonder what it was used for, as the only things you can find for definite it was that it was used to store ammunition during World War One. The Machine Gun Corps famously trained at Belton Park in Grantham in Lincolnshire, but initially they were an offshoot of the Royal Artillery, which was based at Horsted. So that's where the link may be. Maybe people who were on disciplinaries and everything else were sent to the suicide squad. Does make you wonder what it possibly lost in the past, doesn't it? What people have gone through that we don't know about. The Ghost Adventures crew, Zach and all, visited Horsted in episode 9 of series 6. Whether the fort is possessed by demonic entities, which was one of the adverts for that particular show, please don't make me go there about demons, is up for debate. And, well, if I get the chance to visit there, I will look into that for you. And it wouldn't surprise me if, with the especially the World War One and World War Two, the pressure of potentially going off for war, there isn't some kind of resonance there from past events. But on that note, shall we talk with Kerry and Stephen now? Find out what they've experienced there on their many visits. Find out who's come to talk to them. What lingers. Shall we? Well, let's take a little 30-second break, and then we'll ask them to join us. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
And we're back, and I'm happy to be joined by Kerry and Stephen of Fright Nights London, our friends and frequent guests, and some people we love to talk to. So how are you doing, guys?
Yeah, we're good,
not
thanks.
Too bad,
Not too bad, thank you.
Good. Now, I can see from Facebook you've been quite busy this year. Been lots of stuff going on, even since we last spoke back in August. Was it August we did the Jeffrey? It was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that. I know we saw each other in September when I was at Kelvedon Hatch and you guys were there as well, and the three of us spent the night together, as you do. Well, Stephen slept, Kerry and I talked, because we couldn't really sleep, because it was a bit noisy, shall we say. But although Stephen denies he snores, he just breathes heavily, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there'd have been no spirit activity then anyway, because they'd have been too scared, to be quite honest. But anyway, the Jeffrey, how's it going there? Because it shuts soon, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yes,
They're closing just after Christmas. So we've got our final event there this Saturday.
Right.
It's sold out already, so tickets, unfortunately, it's too late this time. They're going to be closing sort of for about a year and a half, 2 years, to do some extensive renovations and expansion. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and possibly what they unearth, obviously, because with a lot of digging and things, you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to keep in touch with them and find out, how the plans go and if anything does come up.
Well, you work near there anyway, don't you, Kerry? Don't you work?
I do, yes.
So you'll be able to be keeping a sort of beady eye on it anyway.
I'm literally a 30-second walk away, so I will be keeping my beady eyes on it. So no, it'll be really good for them to do that. And it's such an amazing museum, and it's so popular. We popped down there the weekend for a cheese festival to hand out some leaflets and talk to people about the events we do there.
Yeah.
And it's there's over 4,000 people
wow.
that come over a weekend. It's so so amazing. It's just such a lovely museum and very welcoming to people.
And I'm sure you mentioned your friend at Haunted Histories, who does the brilliant radio show on Parasearch Radio, didn't you?
Of course we did.
Oh, you paused then. You paused then.
Tell everybody about you.
Oh God. So, I mean, what you say you got your a sellout for this Saturday at the Jeffrey, so it'll be interesting to know. Have you made friends with any more spirits or entities since you were there when we last spoke back in August? Because I know you had a visit there. Was it October you were there? I know you had one.
We've been there since July. We've sort of been informally sort of popped in and things for meetings, but no, we've not sort of actually been back for an event yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this Saturday and to see obviously what's been going on. And now that we've been there once, and they may have sort of be a bit more sort of aware of us.
Well, didn't you have the chap who
back.
was leaning against the fireplace last time? Didn't you have some?
There was a few things around as we were going, so there was a few attachments to items. I mean, first bit of the investigation, we heard a little girl laugh. Yeah. So it was a lovely, nice start off. So.
And the basement was really...
Your old woman in the basement.
Yeah, the dominant lady.
Yeah, no, I remember that because it was you telling me that story when I had that giant spider land on me as I was interviewing you, and you didn't even break a sweat. So I do remember that one, the lady. Yes. Wow. Oh, you'll have to let me know when I see you next what's happened and any new experiences that the Jeffrey has thrown up. That'd be interesting. What about I do know that you've got a new place for next year.
We do, yes. We're at Valence House Museum. That's in February, on the 3rd of February.
And what's Valence House? What's the sort of... Sell it to me, Kerry.
Basically, the house dates back to the 1400s, but there was... Valence House was actually sort of present there sort of back in the 1200s.
Wow.
And Lady Valence, it's rumoured that she was murdered there, and that the dagger that killed her was found in the moat because the house is partially moated, and still is to this day. So the rumours are that the dagger has been found in the moat, and there are pictures of spirits, of one particular spirit standing over the moat, looking over into the water, and also inside there's on one of the staircases. There's a spirit seen there quite frequently. It's a lovely old house. Obviously, with it being a museum, they've also got the whale bones there. A whale that was washed up several hundred years ago in the area, and there's a lot of association with this whale and its bones because of the size of it. Sort of washed up sort of near Dagenham. So it was quite unusual. So you've got sort of Whalebone Lane, and there was a school named after it, and a pub. So the name comes from. It's actually in this museum. So
I think a lot of people don't realise that places like Dagenham, Ilford, even Walthamstow, all those kind of places that you think of now as quite built up, quite sort of, well, I mean, officially Dagenham's Essex, but you think of it as East London. It was the countryside. You know, 200 years ago, when you look at the photos of what it was like, it was countryside. It wasn't the sort of heavily populated areas it is now. No. It's very, very different. Yeah, interesting. So is that one available for booking for people?
Yes, it is. We're booking now, so booking tickets. So it's £49. It's on the 3rd of February. So it's on our website now and on our Facebook page as well.
Brilliant. Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Quite excited about that one.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
That'll be an interesting one to hear
about.
Yeah.
We're back at the Ragged School on the 10th of March as well. We've just booked that one in. So we'll be putting that on our website shortly.
Yeah.
We love the Ragged School, one of our favourites.
Yes, definitely.
So yes, we're back there, and again we sold out last time as well. So there's sort of plenty of people sort of wanting to go on the event, and we just weren't able to get them to come along. So hopefully they'll be able to get on the next one. So
I think with the fact that Ragged School as well was on Ghost Chasers recently when that was shown over like Hallow Week on Really, it's sort of even people who hadn't heard of it are now starting to get a little bit more. Oh, not heard of that one before, and I know if anyone does want to listen, obviously we've got the show that we did on the Ragged School ages ago, that they can hear all about the history of the place and how Ragged Schools came to be, really, what they actually were. So tonight's show, we're going all military, and we're visiting Fort Horsted in Kent, near Chatham, I believe.
It is,
You guys have been there quite a lot to investigate, haven't you?
Yes, we've been there, I think, 3 times this year.
Right.
You've been there. Steve's been there in the past, sort of been there several times, but we've actually sort of held events this year. It's an amazing place, really is, and it's so different from any of our other events that we do, because of obviously with it being the old fort and sort of just the atmosphere and just the general feel of the place is just so different.
Okay, well, obviously Ghost Adventures did a show there back in, I think it was season 6 or something like that, and what's the feeling as you go through those big front doors? You know, the big arched double doors. How does it feel when you go through there? Because they were kind of giving off that it was almost demonic and it was evil and there was presences lurking there. I very rarely get that kind of feeling when I go into a fort. I get more of an industrious feeling when I go into a fort. But what's the feeling you guys get as you first walk in?
From my perspective, no, I don't think demonic. I think it's pretty cool when when they sort of open those doors automatically and they open, you're standing there, it's creaking. It's great. I mean, to record it, it's just fantastic. It looks very sort of foreboding and very it has a really good effect. But once you're inside, it really is. I mean, it's not. I don't personally feel like that at all, and haven't felt that there. Certainly walking around, you never seem to feel alone, particularly on staircases. When we first did our walk around there, it was the first time I ever went there, and we ventured everywhere. So Paul, who runs the business centre there, he took us around everywhere, and every time, I mean, I was the last person down those steps, and there was certainly somebody behind me or with me all the time, and that was in the middle of the day. But it never felt to me threatening or worried in any sort. And no, it felt absolutely fine in there. You're obviously aware there is a lot going on there, but no, it's in my opinion, it's not demonic. I don't know if Steve's got a different perspective to me.
No, I mean, a lot of people jump to demonic if there's something nasty, but if there's something nasty, it doesn't mean it's a demon or anything like that. It just means it's probably a nasty person.
You know my thoughts on this, you guys. You must do. I'm pretty much the anti-demon thing. You didn't see me sort of rolling my eyes as I said the word demonic when I said it originally, obviously. But I'm of the opinion you get shitty people in life, you'll get shitty people in death, and I think a lot of them, if there is someone shitty in death, it seems to be a current trend to label them as being demonic. Plus it sells more television shows if you say it's demonic entities, because people are gonna like the whole Scarefest thing. But so you don't feel anything particularly malevolent?
No, I think there's some nasty things there, but not to the level of someone, as you say, demon or anything like that. I would never put it under that category. It's just a nasty person trying to get their attention, trying to throw their toys at around, sort of thing.
So you think there is something nasty there, Stephen? Is that what you're saying?
Nasty things. There are a few nasty things there, but equally there are some nice things there. I mean, we know of a little girl that's we've heard there. There's animals there as well. Supposedly, people have actually heard a dog bark and growling from a dog. So I mean, it makes sense. It being a fault, there's bound to be something like that there. And apparently, I think there's been horses hooves there as well.
Right.
So I think Paul was telling us it's been heard.
Right.
I haven't heard that yet, but I mean, it's always nice to go back to a location, and it's not always the same. It's almost like sometimes you get a rotation of different spirits come through, and so it's good.
Yeah. To be fair, the last time we went there a few weeks ago, It was 21st of October we were there, and we did one of the rooms that we have done many times before.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we had quite a large group in this room, but all of a sudden people weren't feeling particularly well. And people who've been on many sort of events had the feeling of being unwell, and Steve picked up on a guy who seemed like he was a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
So he could see the mask. Other people had said to me they could smell TCP, sort of unbeknownst to Steve, obviously seeing this, or like a medical smell. People were feeling faint, feeling sick, had to move around the room. Other people were feeling there was somebody watching over them and walking around them all the time. And we've never had that in there at all before. In this particular room, we normally get very little. So it's one of those places. It's unpredictable, which is obviously the most fantastic thing about it. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
But we just know that when we're there, it is active.
I know there have been sightings of like a World War One type era nurse there that I've read about. And what I find quite interesting doing the research from the history thing is there's no logical reason why there would be nursing or medical staff there, because even though it was a quasi-operational fort, it was never properly operational, if that makes sense. It was more done as a precautionary measure. When it was built in the 1800s, it was done more as a precautionary measure against the potential of France or Imperial Germany invading and trying to get to the dockyards at Chatham to destroy the sort of all the naval stuff that they were building. But it was never actually under siege at any point in time yet. What it's been I've found very hard to find is what it was genuinely used for in World War One and World War Two. The information is very, very sparse. And that's when it interests me when I sort of read reports of World War One nurse being there, because as far as I know that I think it was Fort Luton, which is one of the ones built at the same time, that was used as almost like a I can't think what you'd call it, but a camp that the soldiers would stay at before they were then shipped off to France. And I did find evidence that Horsted was used similarly. I found records of a bloke who was stationed there on like a history sort of ancestry type page. But it's very hard to find out what it was actually used for, other than it was used.
I mean, there's certainly been people held there. I think it was is it the sympathetic objectors? Sort of. It's been talk of
objectives.
Conscious. I can never get it right. There's sort of talk of because there's a lot of graffiti on the walls in pencil in some of the areas, and I'm sure that's what Paul said, that's sort of there was a lot of that going on. So a lot of the people, people were actually being held there, and a lot of the sort of the graffiti, it shows that there was a lot of young men there. Some of it's quite vulgar and things. So it's sort of what you'd expect, I suppose, from sort of youngsters or young boys, sort of in the army. But like you said, it's we've had people pick up on a lady there. I don't know about the nurse, that we've not picked up on that, or I haven't picked up on it in any of our groups. But certainly someone else picked up a lady there and couldn't work out what she was doing there, as to why she would be there. Maybe it predates the fort.
It's Saxon land, so it could be related to the Saxons and stuff like that. Well,
it's named after the Saxon king Horsa, who was buried there, isn't it?
Yeah. So but it's different parts of the fort sort of bring up different sort of activity, really. There's one particular area that is we call it like the spider rooms, because it's where it has a lot of sort of the cave spiders.
Right.
And they sort of, you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But there are in certain parts, and they're not for the faint-hearted. Sarah, who works with us on our events, Steve's sister, she really is not very good with spiders at all, so she avoids this area.
Right.
But yeah, but in that area, when we we often get footprints, footsteps and sort of noise, like almost people marching through.
Right.
And
voices as well.
Yeah, hear voices in there.
Distant voices.
And equally, when we have like K2 activity, we have that in sections, and that sort of, some people argue it could be residual, sort of with people walking through, but other times it does actually move around. But that also coincides with being a child, like where it seems to be quite low down, and it will come and go. So people, again, have often picked up on a child being in that part of the fort.
See, that would be unusual as well. Why would a child be there?
Yes, exactly.
I know that they used prisoners to build it in the 1860s, but I don't think those were child. I suppose they could have been back then, 1860, 1870. There could have been child.
Yeah, it was a young girl.
I suppose, but
somebody picked up on a young girl, and we're talking, sort of 5 or 6 sort of age, so quite young.
Unless it was the sort of one of the officers' families, and
maybe, very possible.
Well, they used it for not demon worship or stuff like that, but apparently there were some witches that supposedly conjured something up on the land as well. So it depends on if you believe in stuff like that. But there is a lot of history with the land, and a lot of things have been happening in and around the area. That if you've got a psychic in a location, and you're doing a paranormal investigation, who says it's not something from neighbouring fields that have decided to come in? Or, I mean, we had that at one of our other locations. Something just came in and started talking, and I couldn't tell you where they came from.
Yeah.
So
I know on the Ghost Adventures episode they were walking along like it's almost like a gangway thing, and they could hear voices, and every time they went towards where they heard the voices, there was no one there, but they recorded the sort of like the murmurings of a conversation. Is that the kind of thing that you guys have heard there?
We've had that, but not in that area.
Right.
We've had it in a different area, completely away from there, and it sounds like people having conversations in the distance.
Right.
And then when you try and pinpoint it, or you ask the other groups have been quiet.
Yeah.
But the wall's so thick, you wouldn't be able to hear them, even if they were shouting. I mean, we've heard groups coming in and out, and nobody's actually heard anything in the other groups. And it's like, well, this is interesting, because we swear we heard about 4 or 5 people talking away, but we know they're nowhere near us. And
has any of this been interactive, or has it all been sort of residual stone tape type?
Well, some people have heard almost like people having a conversation about a ghost hunt or about people that are but sometimes it's just almost like you can't really make out anything they're talking about. So it could be stone tape. So I think it's quite interactive as well as stone tape. I think you've got so much of a mix there.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I've been there how many times? And we've had something different every time.
Well, that was when you had in the tunnel, you had the lights, didn't you?
And we had the lights, something imitating. I had my mobile phone on record, and I had a light that kept on coming on my screen. For some reason, it was playing up from another location. Something changed on my settings. I don't know how, but it's almost like something changed it. But when we were in the tunnel, my phone's coming on and off and on and off. So I put it in on this staircase out the way, and we stood away from it, and it went from where my phone was on the right, it went over to the left, and then went back. It was really weird. It's almost like something was moving my phone around. Right. So I turned the lights on, and the phone was always back in the same spot every time we turned the lights on.
Right.
Until we got to the point, my phone came on and lit up where it was supposed to, and something else lit up at the same time on the other side of the staircase. So it was imitating light. And apparently it has been known that lights have been seen in this place. But it was literally imitating it, and we've had it with K2s as well in there, where something's lit up and we thought it was a K2, but we've realised the K2 is in a different place. So another light has appeared, a green light, tiny little green light. It's
Have you tried
imitated
using a torch to communicate if light is a thing that they, turning on a torch on and off?
Yeah, it's one of the things we'd like to try, see if they can interact with us more.
Okay.
And they seem to be really, if they can imitate light, then there's a possibility they can use K2s more often, make it easier for them to talk to us. And, as you say, torches.
I mean, the lights, it was in a tunnel literally where there is no natural light at all, so it's pitch black. And we had another medium who's come to a few of our events, and he was in that group, and even he couldn't answer it. He said, I've got, we got the recording from it, so you can hear everybody saying, I don't know how that's happening. These lights are appearing, and there's just no logical explanation.
We have
to
4 or 5 at one time,
and
it's like, but that's only one light there. They can't produce 4 lights, it's one light, and I've got a case over it, and you can just about barely see that.
Very strange.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It might be. Would you be allowed to have a lit candle in there?
Yes.
Yes, because it's all
they
stone
do have.
and stuff
they
like
have
that,
a lot of. They must have other people go in there with, because you can see sort of old candles and that scattered around.
Trying sort of looking up the old Victorian methods of using candles to communicate as well, because of it being more of a natural light, they might be able to manipulate it.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there, you say something different happens every single time that you go. Are there any sort of, shall we say, spirits that were old friends who you've encountered more than once?
There's a guy, every time I go there, he comes running down, he's in an officer's uniform, and he goes, when you're finished doing what you need to do, you must get everybody up to a certain room and get them to introduce themselves. Every single time. He's always done it. And he's been seen and he's been felt in this building. Every single time he comes up to me, he goes, you must remember to come and introduce everybody to me. So when we do our investigation, I won't tell you where it is or when we're going to do it, but we'll go to a location and we'll get a certain amount of people in and we'll talk to him just to introduce ourselves, because it's almost like if you don't do it, then he won't do anything. But if you do it, he's going to do something. It's
so
almost like,
it's a friend. It's not a sort of an aggressive thing he says to you. It's more of a sort of friendly sort of come and get everyone.
He's nice to some and he's aggressive to others, depending on if he likes you or not. He's exactly how you would be in real life, in actual life.
Yeah.
You'd be, if you didn't like someone, you wouldn't talk to them, or if you really hated someone, you'd make you'd let them know that you didn't like them.
When he comes up to you, Stephen, is he polite? He's friendly, albeit officious. He's an officer at the end of the day, but he's not sort of like in your face kind. You get what I mean? He's not.
He's absolutely polite. He always asks if it would be all right if we come up and introduce him, because he likes to know who's on base, and that's his words.
Which is what a CO
always
would
likes
do.
to know who's on base, and he's almost like he's like the commanding officer.
Yeah.
So,
can you describe his uniform at all?
I would say it's probably Second World War, but it's hard to tell because his uniform looks a lot older than I expected it to.
Right.
So it could be a bit of a mix match, because maybe his father's father was there before. It doesn't seem. He's definitely military, but his uniform seems different to how I would imagine a Second World War uniform. I know he's not American.
Could he be First World War?
It could be. I'm not quite sure, because he seems to be quite aware of everything. He's one of those spirits where he's definitely changed as the building has changed. So it's hard to tell if he was First World War, Second World War, or anything modern, because he's showing me bits, but he does look, and he does come across as being more like a Second World War officer.
Right.
I mean, he's definitely a someone of higher authority, because he always shows me that he's got a stick. He's got a wooden, truncheon sort of stick. He always has it underneath his arm. But if he doesn't like you, he drops it down to the side and he starts tapping his shin.
Right.
And then, he's someone in the group he does not like. There's been a couple of people that have actually felt the stick hit them in the back of the leg. I haven't told people about it. I've told Kerry and I've told Sarah, who works with us, about it. And then lo and behold, bang, he'll do something. So
are there any common denominators with the people he's not liked? Are they not standing upright? Are they rude? Are they not paying attention? Are they women or are they men? Or is the gender not... It's not a gender specific thing?
It's usually men. It's usually men he takes a dislike to.
Okay.
If you go... straight away, you can tell someone with a certain swagger who goes in there, for a fact that he's not going to like that. But the amount of people that have gone into this certain room and gone, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to stand upright and straight. Like, this is what this guy does. He wants you to feel that you're part of the military.
Yeah.
So he's put you in this situation so you feel like you're an officer or you're in the army.
Yeah.
He puts that sort of over onto you, sort of thing. But I mean, you definitely know if he doesn't like someone because that stick goes down to his leg and he starts tapping it. I just know straight away he already doesn't like someone.
Right.
And it's almost like he knows that they're going to play up or they don't believe, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to make sure that they're going to believe because I know for a fact they've been slagging this off or something like that.
Ah.
So he comes across and going, right, okay, you don't believe, okay then, fair enough, I'll show you.
And do you know what his name is? Has he ever told you his name?
No, he's never told me his name. I always ask, and he never tells me his name. But yet we always have to tell him our name. So it's almost like you don't need to know me. I'm the commanding officer. You need to tell me who you are.
Interesting.
It is very interesting to.
Be interesting to know what you thought of Zach Baggins, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Like him. I mean, they ran out of there, didn't they?
Oh, he runs out of most places, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got our officer, our CO, basically, who's still there and looking after the place and monitoring the guests who come and go. Is there anyone else you've met up with more than once?
There has been. It's been nearly a whole year since our last event, to about a year prior. I had sounds weird, but it's not a man, but it is a man. It's almost like he's been conjured up, if that makes sense. Someone's done something and made a spirit.
Almost like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, and that's everybody says that. He's got a man's body, but he's got a wolf's head. And the weirdest thing is, every time I've seen and spoke with him, the head is talking. The wolf's head is talking. So I know that it's attached to him for a reason. Okay. I don't know if it's not like a mask either. It's almost like a real wolf's head.
That almost sounds black magic-y type sort of conjuring.
But I know for a fact he has never walked this earth. So I know that something's brought him to like the spirit realm, into interaction with people.
And is he malevolent at all, or is he more I don't know what I'm doing here?
He's kind of confused more often than not. He looks really menacing, and if people were to see him, they would run.
Yeah.
And if they saw him, they would run. But every time I've gone there, he's been the nicest spirit there. Yeah. He's been quite placid. He's not been aggressive, and he's always ready to show you that he's there. And that's just fantastic. I don't know if he's shown himself like a creature but every time I've asked him, he said he's not from here. He's been brought here, and he's not been alive. He's been pulled from somewhere else, and he's been put into this place, and he can't leave. But he seems like it's home because he's never known anything else.
Very well.
I've been to a few places, and that's always the strangest thing whenever I see this person. And he's not there all the time. So I think he is, but he doesn't
He wasn't at two other events, was he? He was at our most recent one, but not at the previous two.
No.
Right.
But I've seen him there on previous events myself. So, and that's when he first introduced himself, but he doesn't give a name either. I think he does, but it's old. Very old.
It could be an elemental or something like that, or something from the Saxon sort of, almost like a Saxon god or something that was.
Yeah.
So apart from where the spiders are there any bits of it that are actually quite frightening or unnerving to be in?
Funnily enough, and it's one place we haven't investigated, it's the ladies' toilets.
Yeah.
And
not the men's toilets that are worse.
I know. It's supposedly when we were there last, Paul said, you should try to do the ladies' toilets one night because supposedly that's very active, and we've never actually sort of done an investigation in there.
Are these actually the ladies' toilets? Like this is where the ladies will go to use the toilet?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, they can't be any worse than that shower room at Kelvedon Hatch.
No, and they're not at all by any means. They're not as bad as that one at Kelvedon. But yeah, there's I don't know. I mean, I've obviously been in there many times on my own. It's I wouldn't.
I would say the men's toilets is more creepy because you walk in there and it does feel like somebody else is in there with you, even if you're on your own. So.
I think it'll be interesting. You can see for yourself, Penny, next week.
Well, I was going to say this. You've just spoilt my thunder there, Kerry, because I was going to say that maybe when I do the investigation with you guys at Fort Horsted on Saturday the 18th, we could perhaps take a little group off and go and check out the ladies' loos and see if there's anything going on in there.
I mean, there is also somewhere else that we like to take a ladies-only group.
Yes.
Because it's... there's a spirit in there that likes to show off to the ladies. So he...
is it a soldier?
I believe so.
Yes,
oh, God. You know what's going to happen, don't you?
Yeah. Particularly with you there, Penny.
Exactly. I seriously don't know why these military guys come up and attach to me as much as they do, but they do. It doesn't matter where I go. If it's military, I come away with someone. In fact, my husband's getting quite fed up with all the soldier spirits I seem to bring home with me.
And they're young as well, very young.
I know. Yeah, you're going to use me as a guinea pig in that bit, aren't you, to see what happens? Well, seeing as I got my shoulder grabbed at Kelvedon Hatch in the end by what I think was the 22-year-old soldier. We'll see what else I get grabbed at this place, shall we? Just use me and abuse me. That's all you guys want me for. It's nothing, it's not to be friends or to be on my show.
Really.
It's use me and abuse me as a sacrifice to the gods. I'm up for it. See what happens. But yes, so as joking aside, Fright Nights London have got an investigation at Fort Horsted on the 18th of November. There are still tickets available if you go onto their Facebook page or their website. And yes, I will be there on the 18th of November investigating myself. I can't promise that there won't be laughter. I can't even promise that your officer will like me. I'll try and stand upright and have my hair tidy, but, if I start laughing, I can't help myself. I will be laughing. Spiders don't bother me as long as they don't jump onto my head. So as long as they're not man-eating, leaping spiders, we're fine.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, we're fine. But it is somewhere I'm actually really looking forward to investigating. I've been to a few forts, and they're always active, even during the day. Yeah. There's something going on there. There's even if it's a residual kind of industrious type feeling. But what I was most interested in hearing about is the fact that places like this seem to be classed as being menacing and demonic and everything, and I don't believe in the vast majority of cases they are.
No.
Because nothing really malicious had ever happened at the fort.
No.
So it's not like hundreds of soldiers got murdered or anything like that.
No.
But it's the unknown part of its history that I find quite intriguing. So I might be asking a few questions when I come. But yeah, 18th of November, Fright Nights London, Fort Horsted. If you want to go, there are tickets available. You can go and book them, and you'll get to meet the lovely Stephen and the lovely Kerry. And Stephen won't be going to sleep, so you won't be hearing any snoring. And make sure if you do come, you stand upright and everything, because you don't want to be whacked with a officer's stick if you're misbehaving. What that leaves me to say, though, is thanks ever so much for coming on the show, guys. It's been fun, as always, talking to you. I say, if you want to go and follow Fright Nights London, go and find them on Facebook. You can find them on their website as well and see all the different events that they've got coming up. You can book onto Valence House for next year as well. You can book on to go to Fort Horsted Saturday the 18th, and you'll get to meet me as well, which might put you off going. If that's the case, then I won't introduce myself, it's fine. But all that leaves me to say is, don't forget, Parasearch Radio shows 7 nights a week. Tomorrow is the KTPF Reload show, and on Friday we have the Dark Mirror show. If you've missed anything, just catch up on Spreaker or YouTube, we don't mind. And well, that's it really, until next week. So have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.